Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mihir Joshi, and in just a little while, I'm going to be speaking with the gentleman who has written that book, Breathe, Believe, Balance, Shayamal Vallabhjee. And I've just started reading the book. Let me flip the camera around. Here we are. So I've just started reading the book, and I got to tell you, the introduction itself really hooks you on, and it makes you feel like, okay, this is something that you want to spend a little more time understanding. And it's not one of those quick reads. You're going to have to take some time, think about what he's saying, and there's some fantastic things to learn out of this book. And I believe that for a time like right now, the kind of space that we are in, this is an absolutely phenomenal book for anybody to read. It's a book about introspection. It's a book about healing yourself and about finding balance. Shayamal has been somebody who's been involved with the world of sports in a very, very interesting way. And we're going to find out more about that. How exactly... I discovered a word which I'll admit I hadn't heard before, sports scientist. And there's so much that I want to know about what Shayamal has done, and I'm going to take you guys on that journey with me. So let's find out a little bit more about Breathe, Believe, Balance, and about the phenomenal author of this book right about now. And let me get on the fabulous Shayamal Vallabhjee. Let's get him on now. Hi Shayamal, how are you?
Hey buddy, how you doing? Can you hear me well?
I can hear you well, doing really well. And, like I said, we spoke for the first time earlier this morning, and I said I was quite excited about wanting to talk to you about your book and about your journey. So before we actually get to the book, as I always do when I have somebody coming on my show for the first time, I want to find out a little bit more about you. So, let's start a little bit with your journey, with your, as I call it, the origin story. How did you get into doing what you're doing now? I'd like to know about that to begin with.
So Mihir, firstly, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited about this conversation, to be honest. My journey goes back, I was born in South Africa. And, I think any Indian kid growing up anywhere in the world, you want to play cricket or you want to play sport and you want to play it for your country. So India wasn't an option and I wanted to do it for South Africa. Unfortunately, I was born in a time when there was the apartheid, which was institutionalized segregation of people of color. And I really didn't know what the apartheid was, to be honest. And what for those people listening who don't know what it is, it meant that it was systematic oppression of people of color, which means people of color couldn't go to certain places, couldn't study certain things, couldn't go to certain universities, you couldn't experience certain beaches, you were segregated into a small part of the country, and your opportunities were really limited. One of those opportunities was obviously playing sport for the country. And what's crazy was there was a time pre-apartheid when the entire South African football team was an all-white football team, which is really something that's literally unheard of, but that's where it started off, and I realized very quickly, that I had no chance of really playing cricket at state or country level because we're a quota system. There's 70% people of color in South Africa, of which only one can play in that state team or international team. So the odds were stacked against you quite heavily, and I wasn't really ready to give up sport. So I go to university, and the only degree that I knew that could have kept me in sport was sports science. I had no idea what it was. I deep dived into it. I studied it. It was really the understanding of the body and how the body responds with exercise. I started working as a coach literally from the time I'm 19 years old. Okay, I had to retire playing, working. And I thought that my journey as a coach would be a lot different. The truth is it wasn't much different. The oppression that exists as a player existed even greater as a support staff for a coach person. There was quotas that actually allowed people of color to play, even though it was one. There was no quota for management, which means that it was very impossible to get an opportunity. And Mihir, I found, and remember, my parents didn't want me to do sport, so I was fighting with them a lot as a young boy. And when I hit the stone wall, I couldn't really go back home and tell them like, you were right. So I didn't know where to go. So I turned to spirituality. I started living in the temple as a monk, just to sort of understand my mind, to just get rid of this toxicity in there. And then after that, in between all of this, I went with the Indian cricket team to the 2003 World Cup, Cricket World Cup in 2003 with India. I came back, I did an interview for the national job with the South African team. And that was really the turning point. I go for an interview, and they interviewed me for an hour and a half. And then they call the next candidate in, and 2 minutes later, they give him the job. And I realized right there and then that I was just the quota person of color that they had to, I was the placeholder.
They had to show that they actually spoke to a colored person as well.
Yeah, that's it. That was all it is. And they had zero intention. And I'm saying, how long can you stay in a system where the system doesn't have any intention to change? And so that was a journey. And then I moved into Temple, worked a little bit intermittently, and then came to India in 2007 to work with the Indian Olympic and Davis Cup team.
So, for including myself, for people who don't quite understand, what exactly does a sports scientist do? What is it? What is your purview?
So sports scientists would look at the physiology of performance. We look at muscle physiology. Sometimes we look at biomechanics. We look at technique. We look at equipment. Our job is really to quantify how to make someone better. Okay, and making someone better could be, sometimes we analyze 350 or 500 different variables, and our job is to decide which variable is going to give the person the greatest performance gain, and then we apply that variable in there. So if somebody wants to drop off, for example, 100th of a second of their 100-meter finals, we have a look at everything. We can look at the apparel they're wearing, how breathable it is. We can look at the equipment. We can look at their shoes. We can look at their technique. We can look at their strength to muscle ratio. We look at all sorts of variables. Based on what it is, we are like data scientists. We really look at every single thing that could possibly be improved, and then we make a decision on what we're going to improve. And that's what really a sports scientist does. My predominant field was biomechanics and muscle physiology, but I had a very, very keen interest in technology. And I remember going back in 1999 when no one was even doing anything. I worked with a software called Silicon Coach, and I worked with a heart rate monitor company called Sunto. And I got these two companies to meet and engineer something for me. And I was probably one of the first people who could get real-time heart rate of cricketers on a screen whilst the game's going on.
That's amazing.
It was completely unheard of. So what I used that for was to determine when my bowler is getting tired. So based on his recovery rates in between the overs. So he bowls 6 balls, he goes and stands at fine leg. Based on, let's assume he ended the last ball at 180 beats per minute, right? And by the 4th ball in the next over, if he's still at 150, 160, he's not recovered sufficiently enough, then I just signal to the captain, listen, this guy's not ready. Because remember, one loose ball changes the game. So this was just a very basic, rudimentary way in which I was using science and technology at that stage, which was almost more than 2 decades ago.
That's pretty amazing, man. So you said 2007 you came back to India. Oh, you came to India. You spent your childhood in South Africa. You were born in South Africa?
Yes, I was born in South Africa, grew up in South Africa.
I remember reading you are almost 3rd generation in South Africa, right?
Correct, yes.
Right. So when you came to India, how easy was it, or how difficult was it to be accepted as a sports scientist in the Indian space? What did you come here for a job, or did you come here and then try to find out if this is something that people want to implement over here?
Yeah. I actually came here with a job. I got hired by the Indian Davis Cup team. So I was working with Mahesh, Sanya, Rohan, Leander, all of them. And then I started traveling on tour with them. I started helping a lot of the other Olympic athletes. So I came in here. When I set foot in the country, really no one had even heard of what sports science was. The truth was that up until maybe 2016 or 17, nobody even knew what sports science was. So going back that decade, it was completely unheard of. I remember trying to set up an institute in 2012, which was a pure sports science institute. No one even knew what it was. They should just come there for massages and treatment, and all the money we invested in really quantifying performance was wasted because no one understood it. And that was a real awakening for me, because I said, back in 2012 when I set up this Mihir, it was quite a fascinating place. You got the Indian cricket team, who's probably #1 in the world, and then very few other sports are even on the radar. Okay, now for an athlete to perform, you need coaches, you need physios, you need doctors, you need podiatrists, you need good nutritionists. We had none of this in the ecosystem, zero, right? So you got no support whatsoever, and you're trying to produce a champion. What chance do you have? So I realized that that was a very, very interesting inflection point. And I said that, and I remember making a recommendation after the 2008 Beijing Olympics, where I wrote to the Indian Olympic Association saying, listen, for the next 2 or 3 decades, we should invest all our money in games, because Indians are naturally better at games. We're better shooters, we're good at archery, we're good at cricket, we're good at badminton and stuff. We really well behind the 8 ball in terms of athletics, So I said, support games. Let the games bring us medals. Let's change the culture in the country over 10 years, and then we'll get an influx of money, and then we'll give that. We're not going to compete in track and field anytime soon, And that, I remember this is a recommendation I wrote to him in 2008 saying that, yeah.
So, it's pretty amazing when you think about it right now. And, this is something that I always think about. Every time the Olympics come, that's the only time where Indians, and I'm not excluding myself, but most people, we don't think about any other sport. At least now, over the last 1 decade, I'd say football has become big because of the EPL and the La Liga and whatever else. And now there's a little bit of attention towards football, but most often it's attention towards international football. It's not towards Indian football. But there are enough kids who are loving football so that they want to start, they want to start playing it. And now with the ISL having begun, there's a little more interest towards football as a sport. And I think the only other sport which kind of suddenly caught the national attention was kabaddi. But apart from kabaddi and football, in which there is a fair amount of investment done by, say, one television channel and multiple sponsors, the entire focus in India has always been on cricket. And it's incredible how the only time everybody thinks about the fact that we've got athletes in any other sport is when the Olympics come. And then you lament about the fact that, hey, we've not got any medals. Like, we're such a massive country of 1 billion people and we can't get like 40 medals or 20 medals or whatever. But, I love the fact that, you have this approach where you're telling the government or you're telling people in power that, hey, start focusing on something. And have you started seeing changes happening, your recommendations that you are giving? Do you see changes happening? Do you see a mindset change happening even within the people, within, say, parents, within children who are saying that, hey, you know what, maybe there is more to sports than cricket?
Yeah, Mihir, this is a controversial subject and I keep getting thrown into it. I'm definitely seeing changes in certain areas and I'm not seeing changes in other areas. For example, I'm definitely seeing a massive mindset shift in parenting. Parents are now believing that sport is a viable option and I should support my child if he's good enough, because he can literally, with a little bit of support, really generate an income and that. And there's opportunities opening in there. So the mindset shift of parents is definitely drastic. What I've not really seen is too much of of momentum being generated through government. And if you have a look at it, most of our sporting prowess has been developed through private foundations. And you're looking at the JSW Foundation doing phenomenal work. You look at the Go Sports Foundation that's working with more underprivileged foundational kids. You look at Olympic Gold Quest, the Lakshya Foundation, what Rahul Bose is doing. All of these people in their own little small pockets are getting, even Gopi Chand doing amazing work, Prakash Padukone doing amazing work, all of them. But these are private institutes, and private institutes, the impact you're going to make, what impact can a private institute make in a country that has 1.4 billion people? Negligible. And if you have a look at who's producing champions, the champions are being produced through these systems. And really, that's the mirror the government needs to hold up, saying, what are we really doing to support? And even if you can't do something to support, what we can do is we can hold federations accountable for the decision making in how they're supporting that. So, yeah, like I said, we're seeing this monumental shift in the energy of parenting, but in some rudimentary way, we're still stuck back where we were in the 1990s, and that's the sad thing. But there's one really interesting thing that, I work across all fields. I've worked in the ISL, in the Pro Kabaddi League, in IPL, in literally almost every league that's happened in the country, I've had a presence. And there's something that really disappoints me is that, we would invest crores on paying players, but we wouldn't even invest 1 or 2 lakhs in the support staff, the coaches, the physios, the trainers, the massage therapists who are looking after them. Okay. Now, if you don't have adequate support for them, how are you expecting them to perform on a regular basis? And now, I kept asking myself, why would someone make such a poor decision consistently? Right? And the reason we make this decision consistently is because sport in India is not viewed as a science. It's viewed as entertainment, and people are merely commodities.
Yep.
We don't have a deeper empathetic relationship with the athlete to be invested in his growth journey. If he doesn't do it, we'll find someone else to do it.
Correct.
And
It's a sad state, yeah, for sure. I get what you're saying, because I have seen it in reality, where I've seen that athletes are just like artists who are extremely dispensable. What I mean by that is, if I draw a parallel to the entertainment industry, where, say for instance, if there's a corporate event that's going to happen, and I'm always amazed by this, that they will spend lakhs of rupees on alcohol, they will spend lakhs of rupees on decor, but they will think twice before spending 1 lakh rupees or 50,000 rupees to get an artist who spent years getting to a point where he can put himself on a stage in front of 1,000 people, who can put himself in front of 200 people and say that, hey, I'm ready to show you my talent. They don't see the amount of hours and effort that goes into that person to get him to that point where he can demand and say that, listen, I'm worth 2 lakh rupees because I've spent that time and effort crafting my skills to come to a point where, you're asking me to come and perform in your corporate event. It's the same thing with sports. Like you said, I think they think that, oh, if I can't get this person, I can get somebody else, and staff for that matter, who actually help make that show, that sport really fantastic. I get what you're saying.
So it's a systemic problem, as you've seen, across all fields, across all arts. So if musicians are facing it, I'm sure artists, sculptors and painters are facing it. I know athletes are 100% facing it, and it's that systemic change that we need to bring about. We need to start seeing the human behind the art, for us to really have that mindset shift. And I think, and that's what we really need to be starting to cultivate.
No, absolutely. I want to go back a little bit once again. So you said you worked quite extensively with tennis players at the start of your journey here in India. Very often, instead of just getting into the technicalities of your work, I'd love for you to share an interesting anecdote, some special memory that you had, maybe with some player that people would instantly recognize. Something that maybe something that you did with them, which helped them overcome an obstacle. Because I think giving a real life example would probably let people connect or relate more with what you do. Let's talk about some player who was maybe facing some sort of you don't even need to get into the specifics. You don't need to tell us what the problem was, but let's find out a little story about how maybe you helped a player out significantly.
So, some of my athletes, obviously, on the tennis tour, it's Mahesh and Sanya, and we constantly, and obviously Rohan Bopana. So we constantly managing injuries, managing performance, looking at different surfaces, managing injuries on them. If we're looking at something really technical, I always speak of this example from the 2003 World Cup, when India were doing really, really well, and we started getting momentum really early on, and the bowlers particularly were bowling. If you ever watch cricket in South Africa, the optimal length to put your ball on is about 14 to 16 feet in front of the popping crease, because the wickets really bounce a lot. And that's how you get people, you catch them off guard on the bounce. And I remember in that game, we were going to play England in South Africa. And my job as a technical analyst was really to analyze pitch conditions, to analyze the best playing conditions, and really come up with a strategy. And, we're going into South Africa, into Kingsmead, to play England, and I knew that England had Freddie Flintoff, they had Andrew Caddick, who could really extract a lot of bounce from that wicket. And it's not the sort of wicket that you want to really bowl the ball really short if you don't have enough pace, because Kingsmead has it's open on one side of the stand, so you get this crosswind that comes in from the beach, which means if you bowl the ball really full, it swings beautifully. And that was my home ground for almost a decade, so I knew this really well. And I remember sitting in the team meeting and strategizing, and I was telling Sachin worked very, very well on increasing his stance, where him and Sehwag really didn't try to keep the ball on the ground. They were too short to attempt to even keep the ball on the ground. So they made a conscious decision to then score all their runs aerially, right? Because the ground is small and the wicket's bouncing, so it's easy to do that. And then the other massive change that we really worked on was getting an Ashish Nehra and a Zaid Khan to really bowl as full as they possibly can. Literally asking them to aim for Yorkers. Because if you aim for a Yorker, you're generally going to bowl it a foot before that. And that would be the perfect length. You want to really encourage people to drive a lot because the ball swings so much. And I think Ashish Nehra he definitely got the best figures in the entire World Cup in that match. And that may still be his career best, where I think he picked up about 6 for 23 or something like that. And, that was a really beautiful coming together of strategy, where you're looking at environmental conditions, you're looking at what the skills the team has, and how we're going to have to really change everything. And the most beautiful thing about this entire story is there's a piece of research which I talk about in the book called the sigmoid curve. The best athletes in the world are reinventing themselves at the top of their game. Okay, now India had come off the back of 3 wins, right? The team could have very easily, those young bowlers could have easily said that 14 to 16 feet is working for us. Sachin could easily have said, I'm going to play the way I can, I'm going to stick to what I know best, right? But it takes a great athlete with a strong mindset and a willingness to want to change what is working to stay on top of his game. And that's probably one of the most profound stories I think I can share with everyone.
I love that. And, I love the fact that apart from the science of it, there is a lot of spirituality and philosophy that you get into with your book as well. And I love the fact that it says that from living the life of a monk, traveling the globe with professional athletes. I'm just reading the blurb at the end of the book, but you guys got to check the book out. I want to find out, how did that happen? How did you said that, at that point of time, when you were bothered with the apartheid, and problems that you were facing in South Africa, you decided to be a monk. But how does one take that decision, and how long did you actually live the life of a monk, and how did it impact your life? How did it change the way you think and the way you behave?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like I said, I went into the temple because really the environment was highly toxic for me, and I wasn't really enjoying the entire experience of it. I didn't really make a decision and just move into the temple, and it wasn't like I'd never been exposed to that ecosystem. I'd been a part and parcel of that temple. They knew me well. I used to go back and forth. My family were deeply integrated in it. So I knew this practice, I knew it. I just never lived, and I never lived that life. So I took a decision one day. It wasn't a conscious decision. I went to work, drove home from the morning, went to work. The day I realized by the end of the day, 5, 6 o'clock, I said, I can't do this anymore, And I literally, without anything, just drove to the temple and started staying there, and that's how it was. It wasn't planned where I packed a bag and everything and went there. Next morning, I woke up from the temple, did everything. I went to work. And slowly I started carving myself out of that work environment. I reduced my time, spent more time in the temple. And it made a massive, phenomenal difference to me because, what I realized in that time was that the power of the mind. Remember, before that moment, I spent all my energy on cultivating and understanding the human body from a physiological standpoint. I also understood that that was not the ceiling, because an athlete could pass every physiological test and he could still go out there and get a duck. He could pass every single physiological test and he could still come second in a race. So there was something that was unaccounted for, and that was the mind. So in the temple, I really understood the mind, and I was a student of psychology. And this was where people always ask me, how do I bring these 3 worlds together? I said, I don't bring these 3 worlds together. What happened was, when studying physiology, I realized that there's questions that this science can't answer. So I went to psychology. And when I went to psychology, and I realized that there's questions that this science cannot answer, so that's why I went to spirituality, because each science really takes your understanding of yourself a lot deeper. And that was how the worlds really came together.
That's fabulous, man. So, let's talk about not just the book, but also the fact that you've got a very interesting YouTube channel and that you've been putting out content quite regularly on that. So I want to keep the book as the finale. I want to end our conversation by getting a little deeper into the book, but let's tell people a little bit about your YouTube channel. What's the kind of content? Because I've seen some of the videos that you have. You've done a few interviews with some really interesting people. You're talking about, some interesting ideas on how people can improve themselves. But tell people a little bit more about what you intend to do with your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is, I'm invested in building a community of people who are focused on personal growth and personal mastery. So if you are someone who is invested in becoming a better version of yourself in some shape and form, then you and I belong together in some shape and form. And I bring content around 4 verticals: the body, the mind, the relationships, and your environment. I talk to experts in the field because I'm an international, I have international exposure. I bring a lot of foreign experts and doctors on to talk to me, a lot of athletes to come in and talk. They share their lessons. And I'm hoping that through this content, I'll be able to give you bite-sized, snack-sized information that allows you to improve each one of these verticals. The content I give isn't, the content I give is really for the person who's invested in their growth. You know, when I'm talking about the body, I'm not just talking about an exercise. I'm not just telling you to walk for 15 minutes. I'm talking about the impact of the hormones on your brain and how to analyze it. I'll give you a test, for example, and I'll tell you, you go and do the Braverman test, and the Braverman test will tell you what is the driving hormones in your body between GABA, acetylcholine, serotonin, and dopamine. Based on that result, I'll tell you, what supplements to take. I'll also tell you how those results impact your decision making. I'll tell you where you can get this with food. Then when I talk about training, I don't just talk about a program. I talk about muscle physiology, time under tension. So I'm saying, most people go and they do a workout, but I'm saying, you can do a super slow rep. You can do a super slow eccentric rep. You can do a quasi-isometric eccentric rep. You can do a negative repetition. This is all physiology. So the people who follow me are the people who are in some shape and form really invested in decoding themselves, understanding themselves. And that's what I'm going to bring to the audience. And we learn and grow together.
Yeah. And you know what? I just realized when you were talking about this, because I was checking out the introduction, and you write about the 4 parts that you talk about on your YouTube channel as well. So for people who want to get to understand themselves better, like he just said, not only should you get the book, but following Shayamal on Instagram and on YouTube is actually an extension of the book, because you'll get to hear and see stories. Because I know right now most people want audio visual information, not just a book. Maybe you read something in the book and then you want to hear about it, you want to see it. And I think checking out, and I'm going to be doing that as well. And let me show you guys something. That's his channel over there. As you can see, I'm already subscribed to it. Go and subscribe to his channel and follow him on Instagram, so that you get to find out a little bit more about what he's talking about. Also, this video will go up on the YouTube channel of the MJ Show, and I'll give you a link to his Instagram and to his YouTube channel so that you can follow him and get to know more. In fact, today I gave you guys a swipe up link, which gives you a link to his Amazon page as well, where you can go and pick up this book. And speaking of the book, let's get into the book now. So how long did it take for you to put this down? I'm assuming this is a culmination of your years of research and study into the various aspects that make your work happen. Tell me a little bit about this book. How long have you been working on it, and how does it feel to finally have it out?
It's a great question. You're right. Firstly, it contains 25 years of research and writing, but the process itself of writing took me 14 months non-stop, writing literally every single day. And the book is completely different from the pitch I gave my publisher. The pitch I gave the publisher was, I said, I'm going to give you 21 questions and I'm really going to answer this. And simple questions about life, which I'm going to break down. And I wrote the introduction, which was 19,000 words initially, and I submitted and I wrote this. And then this was my process to writing. Okay, I would write every day from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I would write. Okay, then I'd go to sleep. Wake up in the morning, I would meditate for an hour, and then I'll edit what I wrote that previous evening. Okay. Then I'd have a small snack, and I'd do about 3 or 4 hours of research. Okay. All my books, all my articles, whatever. I'd keep all the research, take a little nap or whatever, rest, and then go back and start writing. So I was doing all the writing in the evening. I was doing all the editing in the morning. But before I did anything, I always I meditated. Right. So I never had a framework for this entire book. I would meditate. I said, okay, what is the next question that needs to answer? So the very first question was the question on self-love. And self-love is such a deep subject, but is spoken about so flakily, right? So I'm saying, I can't keep telling people to do retail therapy and spoil themselves and expect you to fall in love with yourself. Surely the subject has got more depth in it. So I peeled away layers of that. And once I understood that, I had to meditate, and in meditation, I got the realization that, okay, you know what, now we need to talk about relationships. Because the first relationship is a relationship with yourself, which is self-love, then that relationship with others. And that's what happened every single day over 14 months. And then one day, at the end of the 8th chapter, which was the chapter on purpose and transcendence and how you give back, in meditation, I just realized that I'm probably 10,000 words short of what my publisher wanted, but this book is done, you know, and there's nothing more that I can do with it. So yeah, that was the journey.
That was pretty amazing, man. And you know, while there are so many, you know, I want you guys to discover, you know, the various facets of this book. But one of the things that I saw, even on your Instagram, you've spoken about, and this was an image which was doing the rounds on Instagram. I mean, on WhatsApp a few months ago. I don't know how it came about, but I know it's a part of your book as well, which is this graph over here.
Ikigai,
the Ikigai graph. Did I pronounce that right? Did I say it right?
Yes. Ikigai, yeah.
So, you know, while we could talk about so many different aspects of your book, can you tell people a little bit about this? Because this is something, when I saw it for the first time, I found a lot of relatability with that. You know, I found that without knowing the philosophy of Ikigai, this is a Japanese concept,
yes.
right?
Correct.
Without knowing it, I realized that over the last, and I discovered it maybe earlier this year, somewhere maybe in Jan or something like that. I realized that all my life I was actually working towards this, and I feel I'm one of the fortunate people who can say that, yeah, I've figured out that aspect of my life. But can you tell us a little bit more about it? I think it'd be great listening to it from you.
That chapter that you pull that from is the introduction to the chapter on purpose and transcendence. And Mihir, that's probably one question, you know, irrespective of what the field is, someone will ask you, I'm either struggling to find my purpose in life, or what is my purpose in life? Everyone is looking for their purpose. And I put the Ikigai model in there because the Ikigai model is probably one of the most profound, easiest to be understood model of how to define purpose. And it has really 4 questions. What are you good at? What can you be paid to do? What do you really love? What does the world need? And when you answer this, somewhere through it, you have to really weave a thread. And I keep saying through that, weaving that thread is trial and error. The first thing that pops up will not necessarily be your purpose. Right? Now, why do we talk about purpose? We talk about purpose because, you know, there comes a time when you're not going to be able to be motivated by money. You're not going to be motivated by fame, right? That purpose is something that wakes you up every single day and allows you to give that best version of yourself to the world. And there's a beautiful quote by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl says, it's only through self-transcendence, which is giving to the world, that you can be self-actualized, which means you can understand yourself. And that is so beautiful and so true. Remember, only by giving of yourself can you really understand who you are. And that's why I put that at the end. I was telling people, you know, your purpose will evolve with time, right? But there is no better time than now to start thinking about it, to start understanding, what do I want to align myself with? And that ends the book. But the book starts with self-love, which has an exercise on core values. You know, when you understand what your value system is, you understand how that contributes to your purpose. And these are the 2 links of the chain that really come together at the end of the book, showing you how your value system is the essence of who you are as a person, that allows you to connect with people, that allows you to fall in love with yourself, that allows you to give to the rest of the world as well.
That's fantastic. You know what? Since the lockdown began, I know a lot of you have joined and you've spent time watching the MJ show. This is, by the way, you are the 139th guest since the 30th of March. So it's been pretty amazing. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me. And I keep joking about the fact that I figured out a very lo-fi version of doing my show. I just feel so, you know, I realize also how important it is to have a good team who works with you closely. You know, when I was thinking about, I wanted to do this when you were talking about this. I wanted to show this to people so people could see what you were talking about as well. And I just realized, had actually worked and we had our entire team together, I'd be able to have a nice graphic and everything. But allow my lo-fi version of it to show you guys what he was speaking about. Look at that graph, and I mean, look at that, what do you call it? pie chart or whatever you want to call it, and see what he was talking about. This is there in the book. It's a fascinating chapter. This is something that you guys would definitely benefit from. I'm going to get the camera back to me, and I want to talk about finally. I want to talk about the fact that this is a very difficult time that the entire world is going through. It's not. It's an unprecedented time in our lives. Nobody has ever experienced what we have over the last 5 years, and I can think about my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation. I don't think anybody has been through this. Do you think, and if you do, why do you think this is a great book for a time like now? Because like you said, finding purpose is such an important aspect of life. And people spend their entire life at times figuring out what is my purpose. Tell people what, if you had to give a small blurb about your book instead of me talking about it, why is this book a great book to read during this lockdown quarantine period?
Yes, this is a fantastic question. I'm happy you asked it. So right now, people are going through what? There's so much of uncertainty. There's panic. There's fear. There's depression. There's sadness. There's loneliness. There's so much on the outside. In chapter 6 of the book, it's called Engineering Your Environment. I speak of 2 environments. I speak of the internal environment, which is the environment which is your mind. And I speak about the external environment, which is everything that you can touch, you can see, you can smell, you can hear, you can taste. Everything else makes up the external environment. In a beautiful book, which most people are commonly, it's called the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Patanjali was a very renowned saint. And Patanjali speaks about 5 states of mind. Okay, Mihir, this is very, very interesting. The first 2 states of mind, right? Sipta and Mukta are the 2 states in which a person is directly influenced by the external environment. If I put them in a toxic environment, their thoughts will be toxic. If I put them in the environment of saints, they will be cultivated like that. They're a direct byproduct of that environment. In the 3rd state of mind, right, I think it's called Ekagra. In the Ekagra state, what happens is you are aware that the potential to cultivate my higher self exists, which means I can breathe, I can meditate, I can chant, I can pray, I can do all of this. And when I do this, I feel calm, I feel blissful, I feel tranquil. Irrespective of what's going on around me, I feel that. Okay. And then the 4th state, but the 3rd state that's very temporary. About an hour after you stop this, you're back to normal. The 4th state and the 5th state, the 4th state is where you can hold that elevated state for a prolonged period of time based on your meditation, your chanting, your breath work, whatever. So the internal environment becomes stronger than the external environment. And in the 5th state, where you see prophets and really realized saints, they can change their environment. Okay. Now, why is this important for this certain time? If you are being impacted by every single thing around you, right, then it's the number one reason you should understand that we've not spent enough time cultivating the internal environment. And you will always be a byproduct of your external environment. And this is the biggest mistake people make.
Right.
In sport, I tell people that your anger is as toxic as your happiness in the world of competition.
Wow.
Right? So, if you are distracted by the loneliness and the uncertainty now, you will be equally distracted by happiness and joy at a later stage.
That's amazing.
Which is why you have to invest time and energy in understanding yourself so that you can rise above every emotional state and every environment. So, if you want to know why to read this book will tell you how to cultivate yourself so that irrespective of what's happening around you, good, bad, and ugly, you can still remain like a rock anchored.
That's fantastic, man. That's I'm inadvertently, I told Shayamal earlier in the afternoon when we spoke that I don't really know where conversations that I do over here on the MJ show lead to, but I'm glad it led to this point because this is the best advice that you could get right now. It's about if you're happy from within, then things that are around you could not get you down no matter how bad or how good they are. You would be content with yourself. And I promise you, and I intend to keep that promise, we will stay in touch. I intend to read the book. Somebody was asking me what the book is called. I pinned the comment over there, and I'll let you see it one more time. That there is the book. It's called Breathe, Believe, Balance. And I want to thank you, Shayamal, for spending this time with me and for chatting with me.
It's a beautiful chat. Thank you very, very much.
Lovely having you on the show today. I want to wish you all the best. It's already #1 bestseller in its category on Amazon. May it do really, really well. I genuinely want more and more people to read this book because, and see, for people who are fans of the MJ Show, I don't often have authors. Most of the people that you see are either musicians or actors or entertainers of some sort. But I believe that this is something that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to find out more about the book. I wanted to speak to the man who wrote the book. And, just reading the blurb which was sent to me by his team got me excited and got me interested. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I'm going to get to read the book. And I know, I'm telling you, as I do with all the singers who come on the show, I'd love to get Shayamal, I'd love to get you back, and we will talk a little bit more when I have spent more time with your book. I'd love for us to have a follow-up conversation to this. Absolutely. And maybe we could discuss a few more things the next time we're there. And will you save this live? I save every live. Not only will it get saved here on IGTV, but it will go on the YouTube channel of The MJ Show. Just go on YouTube, search for The MJ Show. You can't miss it. Subscribe to The MJ Show and subscribe to Shayamal's channel as well. I'm going to give you a link to that under this episode, in the description, and follow him on Instagram as well. But for today, this is pretty much all the time we have. Shayamal, thank you so much for being here with me. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. And I'm looking forward to meeting with you and speaking with you once things get back to normal.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to have a lot of chats and we're going to connect on many things. But thank you very much to everyone who listened. I see a lot of our friends, Sushant and Rima and everyone joined. So thank you to everybody who joined. And thank you, Mihir, for hosting me. It was beautiful.
Lovely, man. Take care of yourself. I'll see you soon. Bye. And that there was Shayamal Vallabhjee. My name is Mihir Joshi. This is the MJ Show. I will see you tomorrow night, really late at night. I know for us here in India, it's going to be late, but for my guests, it's going to be early in the morning. Ananya Birla is going to be on the MJ Show tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about her new song. It's going to be fantastic. Join me tomorrow, 11:30 p.m. India time. I don't really know what time it is going to be in LA, but it's going to be early in the morning. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. That was a crappy ending. Wait, imagine I did not do that. If I had an editing team, they would edit it. And I'm going to say that last line again. Take care of yourselves, guys. I will see you tomorrow evening. Bye-bye.